I'm Julia. So, a very few words about myself. So, I'm the executive director at Fluix, and Fluix is a software company, and we've helped with going from paper to paperless, automating those business processes. And I've personally worked with wind energy companies for 10 years now. So, I'm very privileged to be here to speak to you and to catch up later. You probably saw these bullet points, so I'm not going to touch base on that, right? I'm not going to stop very closely on them. One thing I do want to leave you with today are a few practical tips of how to actually go for digitalization and digital transformation, be part of it, benefit from it. And you see, I'm changing the setting a little bit because we're getting closer to lunchtime. So those thoughts are getting into your heads. I'll try to get us back onto schedule. So I'll be very brief, I promise. With this said, let's remind ourselves why we're here, right? So I'm not going to read through these. I'm sure you know all these numbers. But basically, why are we talking about this? Digital innovation, digital transformation. Because hypergrowth is expected from renewable energy right now. With all these macroeconomic trends, this is what we are facing in the next 5 years. So the companies need to adjust to this, to find approaches to deal with this, to adapt. And that is all about digital technology that people are talking about now. With that in mind, again, remember, I'm from a technology company, and we are going to be talking about digital transformation. I would voice the same message that one of the people my colleague speaker already said today. It's not really about technology. We're not solely about technology, right? So again, I'm from a technology company, and I'm claiming that it's not just about technology. Again, I've seen this many, many times. I will ask you to do me a favor now. Again, you're not going to stretch, but I'll ask you to raise hands. First question. How many of you already have digital transformation strategies in your companies? Raise your hands. Not too bad, not too bad. Very good. Next one. Raise your hand. How many of you are familiar and comfortable with that digital transformation strategy? Very good. Very good. I'm happy. Whew. Last thing. I promise. Last question, and I'll move on. Do you think, how many of you think that it's complicated and will take ages to implement that digital transformation strategy? Here you go. And here's my main message for today's presentation, to be honest. I want to prove that it can be fairly simple, that you can be part of it, that you can benefit from it, at least on a business unit or a team level or somewhere. And, okay, I'm getting a switch. Okay. We're trying to have this setting, to revive the atmosphere here. So that's why we're doing a lot of different props. I'm not going to dance, but here are the logos. And I'm not bragging, right? So it's not because I want to brag and show, these are the companies we've worked with for 10 years. The reason I have the slide on is there is no one-size-fits-all approach or solution. And I'm not going to be preaching this to you today. So in course of my personal work with every single one of these companies, I've learned the following. There's no one magic bullet, but good news is there are plenty of magic bullets. And to illustrate what I'm talking about, 10 years ago, I was first approached by a Siemens Windpower, back then, small team of 15 people from the UK. And they said the following, we want to experiment and we want to have our paper documents, our paper checklists in the digital format. We'll want to experiment in the field with that. And you have this consumer app and we've been using it, so can we probably use it as a team? We would probably need a few tweaks with the workflow. And that's how the story started. Now it's Siemens Gamesa, Windpower. Sporadically, teams joined throughout the globe, and we have 5,000 plus people using the software for automated workflows and digital checklists. How that happened? Procurement came into play way later. So again, that was their approach. RWE, on the other hand, they came just a few years ago, and that was a completely different story. Their procurement reached out to us and said, we heard you have the software, but what we want to do, we want to have you as a trusted vendor. We want to have a frame agreement with you. And what we want to do with this is we'll internally advertise within our RWE teams for different projects. And if they want to use your software, it's fine. They can get training, they will get materials, we'll give your contact information to them. So that was their approach. There were classical offline workshops and trainings approach. We sat in one room, we spoke to the people, all of that. So again, no one size fits all. I want to leave you with this. It's your choice on how to get started with this whole thing. I keep talking about these strange words. So let's put the terminology in place first and get the definitions going. Digitization. It's when you take your pen and paper, get rid of it, and put it into a digital format. As simple as that. Next step, digitalization. And what that means is you automate routine processes and tasks, and you implement them on the level of a team or a project or a business unit. Digital transformation, yet another step, and that's when you streamline this across the entire organization, which is, of course, a lot more difficult, right, to get that unified approach. This is very obvious, right? So just putting something into a digital format works, but what's next? Are you collecting that data? Are you actually getting rid of manual work? Do your people in the field team know what is the next step of that workflow, of that process? How do they deal with multiple versions of checklists? That is always the story here. So we need to get to the next step in order to be more efficient as companies. And that's, again, experience proved that over and over again. Even if you have everything in digital format, it's just not going to move the needle. How do we go next? What is the next step? How do we take that step? And what's going to happen? Again, I promised very, very practical ideas to you here. One more obvious thing is collaboration. I said that you can participate in digital transformation. You can benefit from it, but you cannot and should not be doing this on your own, right? So you need other people to collaborate with you on that project, on the ideas on how to launch this. How do you start? We know this, again, from experience. The knowledge is already out there. There have been other companies doing this. They already have successes, already have mistakes. You can learn from it. So talk to these companies. I can recommend a few people for you to talk to who launched it. Go Google it. I don't know, read about these stories. There are research papers on this. Get a few hints and ideas in your head, and then launch this. As I said, very practical here. It's one of those things that we've learned has worked the best. You do not invest a lot of money. You do not invest a lot of time into this. You choose one or two processes. My tip here would be, it should be fairly simple, very clear, termed, with a timeline attached to it, with a goal that you can measure against, and with a team who is willing to experiment. Define that timeline, and then put all the stakeholders in one room. Doesn't matter, virtual, real room, but put them together. And usually that's your field technicians, your site management, your project lead, your documentation department, right? So they're going to be having those documents sent back to them. Have them all in one room. Talk to them. Ask them these questions. What is that business process? How does it look like today? Do you see any improvements that you'd like to add to that business process? Trust me, there's one interesting observation I've had. Despite the fact that the process is fairly simple, every single person in that room will have a different opinion of what the process looks like and should look like. Quality would definitely claim all the checklists should be in their hands before they go anywhere else, if quality is participating. Documentation would say, oh, we need this name of the file attached to all the checklists. Your technicians will say, well, we always do it this way, and that's how we want to do it moving forward. So get them in one room, have a whiteboard available, start drawing boxes and arrows. As simple as that. And then make corrections and optimize again and again. Once you get all the requirements, think about this. You need someone to be propelling this forward, right? That central point of contact. You can be that person. If you're fine with it, you can be that person. Or find someone who is interested enough in technology, in making something different, in change, and make them your champion, because you need at least someone, one person, who will know what's happening there. Again, from experience, a few companies worked on this the following way. They chose that process, they chose the project, and they worked in parallel. They took paper binders, and they took technology, and they compared. During pilot project, and of course, there's learning curve. Of course, people need to adjust to new tools and new technology. But at the end of the day, they still were able to compare, how well people were adjusting, how, that compared. Was there any time saved? Was the quality improved? Did the customer at the end of the day get the documentation fast? And the company got paid faster? And we only now come to software, to be honest. So all of that groundwork can be done either on your own, internally in your company, if you want to do this. You can also talk to your software partner, discuss it with them, and get them into your room together with the stakeholders and your champion. But find the right software partner. I heard today a few times about in-house solutions. I have nothing against in-house solutions. Again, I've seen examples when it failed miserably. That's why I cannot preach about, go and find a software partner or go build a team of in-house experts. And there was very good, I think, Thomas, you mentioned, you need to find IT experts and keep them, which is extremely difficult today. That's why usually, this is what I heard again from wind energy companies, that's why their projects on in-house solutions failed most of the times. So find a partner. And it can be one of these. You can already know what you want. So basically, you go and talk to a supplier. You pay money, you get the software deployed, and you're fine. Or, again, I cannot talk about suppliers too much. We've always been this partner side column on the right. So we've usually worked with the company from the very beginning when they were not even able to articulate what they want at the end of the day and what the final goal is. That's why we sat together in a room, discussed, put all these requirements in place, and then we said, okay, so let's try to mirror all of that in our software. What does that mean? 1 or 2 processes. You remember I said very simplistic. So you bridge the gap between your field team that is on site, far away, then your office, your documentation, your process improvement, management, whoever needs to be part of the process, and your customer. How does it look in a software, or how can it potentially look in a software? Again, in very simple terms. This is one of the examples of a very simplistic workflow of wind inspections, but that's how it's going to look like. And even this simple workflow already gives you a lot of power. You get access to data, everything that's collected in your PDFs or whatever format of the documents, the checklists are being filled out in. You get access to that data. You get automated routing added. So you pre-configure your approval workflows, or who's the next step in that process, or which version of the document needs to be used by the team. And at the end of the day, the goal is to save time, to improve quality, and get the documentation in front of the customer faster. And that's the ultimate goal that you are going to be measuring this against. So this is the most important part, right? And I'm not talking financial gains only. So financial gains, as I said, maybe if you scale, maybe down the road, you'll find a lot of financial gains here. But at the end of the day, time, manual effort, quality matter not least than financial gains out of it. And again, I saw that multiple times. I had examples when wind energy companies said, our customer returned all the documentation to us because the date was in the wrong format. I'm not kidding. All the teams had to return on site and refill all of the paperwork because at the end of the day, the customer said, I'm not accepting it. The other ridiculous thing was the color of the pen. So they didn't like the blue one, they wanted black. So again, with this, it's going to be a little easier. I can promise you that. Get that feedback. Your software is never going to work from day one. And let's be realistic. People are used to paper documents. People are used to particular ways of handling everything, right? So at the end of the day, get that feedback from your technicians, from the site lead, from project managers, from subcontractors, from pretty much everyone involved, from documentation. Get that feedback going around. Collect it, aggregate it, share it, most importantly, with your software partner. Because again, at the end of the day, they will need to help you make those adjustments. And that's what's going to help you understand, okay, are they that trusted partner we want to work with? Can they help us? Can they adjust? And that's where, if all things come together beautifully, confidently choose more processes. But that's, of course, a very nice and shiny picture. Doesn't usually happen that way. It takes time. Again, not going to be kidding you and telling you it's so easy breezy. However, I am going to leave you with a few of these numbers. And this is real. This has been collected over 10 years' time. So these are numbers and data from companies who've been using automated workflows, digital checklists, with many, many people on different projects, in service, in installation, in construction, whatever wind energy projects those were. So I am going to leave you with this, and I promised that I'll try to get us back on schedule. So I'm done.
Thank you very much.